Want to make a podcast? Spotify's got a platform that lets you make one super easily, then distribute it everywhere and earn money, all in one place for free. It's called Spotify for Podcasters, and here's how it works. Spotify for Podcasters lets you record and edit podcasts right from your phone or computer, so no matter what your setup is like, you can start creating today. Then you can distribute your podcast to Spotify and everywhere else podcasts are heard. Video podcasts are also available on Spotify. With Spotify for Podcasters, you can earn money in a variety of ways, including ads and podcast subscriptions. And best of all, it's totally free with no catch. Ever since we discovered Spotify for Podcasters, we have had so much fun trying out all of the features like Q&As and polls that let us be really creative and engage with our audience. I highly recommend you give it a try. Download the Spotify for Podcasters app or go to www.spotify.com/podcasters to get started. Hello and welcome back to Podcast Royal. Rachel, how's your week going so far?
So far, so good. How was your birthday this weekend?
It was good. It was just like I said, quiet and low key. I went back to Georgia and had dinner at home with family. So it was the first year in a while that I didn't go out to a restaurant for dinner.
Yeah. Well, happy belated birthday. It was on Friday. So, on behalf of all of our listeners, happy birthday.
Thank you so much. So we'll go ahead and jump into the content today. I am kicking off today the start of a new series of episodes focused on one specific topic within our lifestyle segment. I'm really excited about this. So over the next several weeks, our content will be focused on the architectural and interior design elements of some of our favorite royal residences.
Can I just tell you how excited I am about this thread of content? Because
Good.
I know you love interior design. I love interior design. I can't wait to hear about each person's house.
I'm excited about this too. You're right. I love interior design. I love homes with history and character, and the UK has some very beautiful older homes. I watch a little bit of British television, and occasionally I'll catch a show on real estate or interior design. And I, of course, have spent a good bit of time the past couple of years decorating my own home. I moved in 2018. And I have learned a fresh paint of coat goes a long way, and it's always fun to style a space. So I think this will be a fun little series that we'll do, and we'll go ahead and jump right in. So our first royal residence that we are covering today is very fittingly Balmoral. I say fittingly because this week our friends in Scotland were celebrating Burns Night, which I was not familiar with until I just learned about it the other day. Were you familiar with this one, Rachel?
No, I wasn't. And I only really knew about it because Kate, of course, was seen wearing that gorgeous tartan dress for Burns Night. And then, of course, they've been talking about it, but I'm glad you're bringing it up because I'm sure many of our listeners don't know what that is.
Yeah, so for those of you who are not in the UK and aren't familiar with this holiday, it is a Scottish celebration of the life and poetry of Robert Burns, who wrote several poems, and he also famously wrote the song Auld Lang Syne, which I'm pretty sure we all know that song.
I can't ever listen to that song without weeping, by the way.
Yeah, I know, it's a good one. So he was born in Scotland on January 25th, which is the official holiday of Burns Night. And traditionally, those celebrating will enjoy Burns supper, which typically consists of haggis and two side dishes they're referred to as neats and tatties. So to give a little backstory on that, if you don't know what haggis is, I have actually never had it. I'll have to try it one day, but according to my research, it's like a pudding that consists of sheep's liver, heart, and lungs, sometimes mixed with beef and mixed with oatmeal, and is seasoned with spices like onion and cayenne, and then packed into sheep's stomach and boiled.
You can count me out that dinner party. I'm good. Thanks.
Yeah,
That
I
sounds
mean,
disgusting.
I don't know. I can be pretty adventurous, and I'm willing to try just about anything, but I don't know if I'll like that one or not.
I have
But I
heard of this dish. I had no idea it was sheep's liver, heart, and lungs. I'm gonna have to pass on this dish.
well, you could probably do the neeps and tatties. I think I would get behind that. It's just mashed turnips and potatoes. So I think neeps is short for turnips and tatties is short for potatoes.
Yeah, I could get behind that, but I'm not gonna do that. The Is it haggis?
Haggis.
Haggis. No. That's gonna be a no from me.
So on to Balmoral. Balmoral is, of course, located in Scotland, and it is where the Queen spends her summer holidays. It's actually believed that Balmoral is her favorite residence, and I can totally see why. If you have never seen a photo, go Google it. It is absolutely beautiful. Balmoral was originally purchased in 1852 by Queen Victoria and Prince Albert. So one thing I didn't know was the original residence was actually demolished by the family. They deemed it too small, and so they replaced it with new construction in 1856. Did you know that, Rachel?
No, I didn't. I don't know much about Balmoral. Honestly, the only thing I know is that that is the Queen's summer home
Hmm.
and where the boys, William and Harry, were when they found out about Diana's death.
Oh, wow. Yeah, I don't know if I knew that.
Yeah, they were out there with Charles was there, obviously the Queen, Philip, and they were planning to reunite with their mother, I think, within the next couple of days because it was at the end of August when she died. And so that's forever stuck in my mind, those photos of them at Balmoral when Diana died.
Yeah, wow. Um, so the style of Balmoral is considered Scottish baronial and Gothic revival. It's constructed of local granite. It's made up of two sections that surround a courtyard, and the exterior features this enormous clock tower and these stunning round turrets with pointed tops, which are exactly like what you might imagine a royal castle would have. If you go out there and Google an image, you'll know just what I'm talking about. But it looks exactly like a Disney princess castle. So the gray stone exterior, certain areas of it feature rich green ivy crawling up parts of the walls. Inside, there are 52 bedrooms, which is quite the royal home, in my opinion. I mean, you can just imagine how many people have been hosted there over the years, and there's plenty of room for all of their friends. And there's also a few notable rooms in the home, I'm going to mention those specifically when talking about the style of this home. The first one that I'll start with is the ballroom. So this large room in the home has a long row of massive chandeliers hanging from a really large center beam in the middle of the ceiling. And the ceiling also features these like several dark wooden beams that sort of cross each other, giving the ceiling a coffered look, which is like dropped square shapes coming down from the ceiling. So you've got these massive chandeliers hanging, and then at the top of the walls, in a row kind of surrounding the room, there are these large deer or stag heads mounted on the wall. And I imagine these are deer that have been hunted by members of the royal family on the estate,
Mhm.
because we know they do like to hunt.
You know what I'm
And then
thinking
the
of as you say this, Jessica, is I'm thinking of The Crown and the Balmoral test, which is not a real thing, listeners, just for the record, but that they do love to hunt out at Balmoral.
Yes, and I thought of The Crown as well, and I think if you've seen that show, you'll get a good picture for this residence and what it looks like. The ballroom also features trefoil designs throughout, which, if you're not familiar with that, it's like the little, it's like three circles grouped together that kind of make like a rounded triangle. So when I looked online to see this design throughout the room, it was really difficult to see in pictures, but I think from what I could make out, they may have been carved in some dark wood trim work around the room. But I always think of isn't it the Girl Scout cookie that are called
Yep.
trefoil? They kind of
Yep.
have the, like rounded edges on the cookies.
Yep. I can see that in my mind right now.
So, according to Architectural Digest, the ballroom is classic Highland style, which is that rugged Scottish Highlands design. So, think dark wood, stag heads, stone features. And this style kind of bleeds into other areas of the home as well. A common color throughout Balmoral is dark green. So, you'll see it in the walls, the carpet, other furnishings. And another room in the house that's gotten some attention through the years is Queen Elizabeth's study. This room also features green walls, and other images of the room show green furniture, green plaid carpet, green and white floral length curtains. So we see a lot of green repeated throughout the home. Um, the home also features plaid upholstery, chairs with pleated skirts, wood cabinets, marble fireplaces topped with mirrors and covered with cozy fire screens. You'll see large clocks, leather bound books, antique framed art, candelabras throughout the home, and chintz fabrics and tartans.
Here comes tartan again.
So it's, this home is a very traditional, kind of heavy, dark decor. In my mind, I think of it as a luxury hunting lodge style home.
That is
It's,
exactly what I think of. It is like a hunting lodge, a fancy hunting lodge
yes,
made
yes.
for royal. This is not, by the way, and I don't think it's yours either. This is not really my personal aesthetic, but for someone that loves to hunt and loves that lifestyle, this is a dream come true.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I think this can be pulled off in a number of different ways. But you're right. I mean, it's a fairly masculine design style. And to me, it's sort of outdated, but also kind of timeless and classic. It's like, it feels old, but it's never really going to go out of style.
Yeah.
And it's just really, I mean, it's stunning from what I've seen. It feels really cozy when you describe it. And that kind of got me thinking, I wonder why they don't celebrate Christmas at Balmoral.
Yeah.
Because it just makes me think of, sitting by a warm fire with dim lighting and like a hot beverage and, a tartan blanket and snow outside or something. It just feels
Yeah.
very cozy and wintry.
I thought the same thing. You read my mind, and I, I will be honest with you. I sometimes get Balmoral and Sandringham confused, and so for a second I was thinking, okay, well that makes sense because that's where they spend the winter. And I said, but wait, that's not true. It's Balmoral is for the summer, and
Mhm.
Sandringham is for the winter. The way I think of it is B comes before S and summer comes before winter, but I get confused too.
That's a good little way to remember it. For our listeners, that was kind of a brief description of Balmoral. I mean, I have never been there. I don't, Rachel, I don't think you've ever been there.
I wish,
Um,
but no.
so I hope that was a good description of what the home looks like. So I wanted to take from that, and if you're wondering how you can pull inspiration and incorporate this into your home somewhere, I've got some ideas for you there. So if you feel like this is too much for you to live with in every room of your house, which you probably do, I recommend choosing one area in your home, like maybe a home office or a den or like a man cave or a finished basement, and kind of style the room around these elements. So I think it would be stunning to install dark wood cosmetic beams along a ceiling in a room of your home. So there are some cost-effective ways to do this. You can look online to DIY it or you can hire it out. But there are ways you can build boxes that look like beams, but they're actually hollow on the inside and you can attach them to your ceiling. So think about that. Like let's say you're doing a den. You've got the dark beams across the ceiling. And then to keep the room a little bit lighter and not too heavier, or not, I'm sorry, not too heavy, I recommend painting the walls a lighter shade, like a soft, creamy white. Cover the floors with a large rug to kind of give it that cozy vibe. And you can choose like a natural fiber rug and layer it with a faux fur animal skin, or you can do a green plaid area rug, which I think would be a great way to kind of incorporate that plaid theme. Or you could hang plaid curtains and incorporate it that way. I also recommend, if you can, try to source some antlers or some deer for the wall. And I will note you can find faux antlers if you're not a hunter, that's not really your thing.
Or
But
you
just
can just date all the men that I date who all have these humongous mounted deer heads on their, which is very jarring. I've dated the last guy I dated had a huge deer head in the foyer, and sometimes I would forget that and I would go to get a glass of water or whatever and be walking in the foyer and it would scare me to death. So my new rule about deer heads, because a lot of men that I date do hunt. I don't care if we have deer heads in the home, but I do not need them to be in the foyer. We can put them like what you're saying is perfect. The Balmoral aesthetic is perfect for a man cave or a man room, but
yeah.
I do not want this aesthetic throughout my entire house. Now, in parts of the house, absolutely. We can put 45 deer heads on the wall in this one room, but I just don't need them out looking at me while I eat or looking at me while I walk in the foyer.
So I have a question for you. Have you ever been hunting?
No, I have shot a gun once. I didn't like it. I don't think I would mind. I love to fish. I don't think I would mind going hunting, but I'm not going to be the one to kill the deer. I just it guns just aren't my thing. I would never fit in with the Mountbatten Windsors because I would be the one that would be too scared to participate.
Well, I have seen some very elegantly mounted deer or antelope or different things like that before. We actually, I grew up in Georgia where we've got a family farm, and so I'm very familiar with going hunting and all of that, fishing, hunting, and you name it. I don't have a lot of experience shooting deer, but I have been deer hunting, and I do have one trophy that a deer I shot several years ago that actually I've got it here. I don't have it mounted on the wall because I haven't found the right place yet. So I'll agree with you. It's not going to go in my entryway, but I'm going to get it up in one of my rooms. I just have to
Where are
decide
you
where.
keeping it? Because I don't remember ever seeing it at your house.
It's in the guest room right now. I think I have found a wall for it. So I may actually mount that in the next week or two.
And I say all of this, look, if you want to have a deer head in your foyer, then go for it. But that's just not for me. So we can keep those to the to designated rooms. But there's people, and I'm going to get off my soapbox here, but there's people who have heads of animals in their dining room, and I just that's not that makes my stomach turn a little bit. So
Right. Yeah. Placement is very important.
yeah. Anyway, I digress.
So, all right. So once you have sourced some antlers, if you want to do that and put them in the room, you can also bring in like a big leather sofa. And I recommend covering it with either plaid pillows or a tartan throw or a faux fur blanket to kind of soften it up. And then think about how else you can warm up the room with like a fireplace element. So if you don't have a fireplace in your room already, there are actually several DIY websites that I've seen online that provide tutorials on how to build like a fireplace front and mantle around an electric fireplace. So you aren't actually putting a chimney in your home, but you're buying the electric fireplace that would plug into an outlet and it has some sort of like a digital image or hologram of flames. And a lot of them actually do put out some heat, kind of like a small electric space heater. But you can build a fireplace around these, and you can take it up to the ceiling or whatever you want to do. And it's basically a, you know, your very own DIY fireplace. So
Love that.
um, I really like that idea. That's something I would definitely tackle if I had the space for it in my house. And then, also finish out the room with like a marble top coffee table if you want to bring in the element of marble in the home, like they've got in Balmoral. And then, of course, you can modernize it a little bit and put a flat screen TV above the fireplace. I did actually read that the royal family has put some TVs up in Balmoral, so you'll be in keeping with them if you do that. And then lastly, I would say add a plush, like a traditional wingback chair with some type of upholstered fabric, like a floral or chintz type fabric to kind of tie it all in. And that would be your Balmoral den.
I love that. I love that again for certain spots in the house. I love that.
Agreed. So, real quick for the exterior of the home, if you want to follow Balmoral style, I recommend taking a part of your backyard area. So, Balmoral has a flower garden and a vegetable garden. So, this spring would be a great time to clear out a space for a garden in your backyard. You could surround it with pretty flowers and do like a border of flowers. And then in the center, plant your favorite vegetables. And then you could also plant some ivy along the base of your home and start training it to grow up the side of your home. So I see this a lot in Birmingham, actually, and I think it's very pretty. It's really not difficult to do. Ivy grows super quickly and it will climb a wall. So you can either train it by wrapping it around some wire and attaching it to a wall, or you may be able to do it without wire. I'm not sure how well it will stick on its own, but I'm sure it will eventually attach to the side of your home.
I love that. By the way, speaking of gardening, I have said for years that because I have a nice backyard now, I have said that I'm going to plant a garden. I'm going to plant a garden. And my gosh, I spend so much time at my house. I have no reason to not have a garden. So, Jessica and listeners, hold me accountable. This spring, I'm going to plant a garden.
Okay, yeah, I'll hold you accountable. And then we should go shopping for some gardening stuff together because I want to do like a little container garden in my garden.
Yeah, I really think that I would enjoy that hobby. My mom had a garden when I was growing up and I loved watching flowers bloom and so I mean again, I spend so much time at home at the moment because of COVID that there's no reason why I don't have a garden. So this is extra inspiration to go ahead and do this.
So I do have a pro tip for you and any of our listeners that want to take on gardening. I learned this last year. So if you have vegetables or anything that even flowers that you don't want deer or pests to get to, plant marigold around your little garden, and apparently marigold tastes really terrible and
Mm,
deer do not like it, so they'll stay away.
that is a good pro tip. I'm not so concerned about deer in my backyard, but neighborhood dogs. So I don't want them to eat my garden. So that's a good tip.
Well, I had a deer eat my garden a couple of years ago when I tried it. And then last year, I actually fenced in my yard, so I didn't have any more issues. But the marigold's pretty and it lasts a long time. I was really impressed with it.
All right, we're going to have to do this spring.
Done. Okay, so that is all we've got on our royal residence style today. A big thank you to Architectural Digest for a lot of that information on Balmoral. It was a really good source for me. Before I hand it over to you, Rachel, we have another round of What the Royal.
Yes, I've been wanting this to come back for a couple weeks. So I'm so glad this is back.
So, for our listeners who are not familiar, if you didn't hear this segment, um,
Sorry, I just jumped ahead. I'm so glad you're talking about this. This is really bizarre. I'm sorry, but Charles is an interesting person.
Yeah, so Rachel's reading some stuff I sent over to her about this. So we have started this little segment and it kind of pops up at random, but it's just silly things that we catch the royals, doing that kind of make us chuckle or laugh and wonder, what in the world they are thinking sometimes. But so this time, the Prince of Wales, we caught a photo of him holding a giant red squirrel this last week. So he was celebrating Red Squirrel Appreciation Day as patron of Red Squirrel Survival Trust. I'll note red squirrels are an endangered species in the UK. I think they said on their Instagram that less than 140,000 of them are in the UK today. So I clicked through the Instagram stories of Clarence House and I was just cracking up at the pictures they shared. Rachel, if you didn't see these, I'm going to text them to you.
Yeah, please do, because I did not see them.
So the first picture that I mentioned with the giant red squirrel, it was actually a stuffed animal. It was huge, which made it even funnier. And Prince Charles just looked delighted to be celebrating this red squirrel. And there was also a photo of him kind of kneeling down at the top of some steps, and there was an actual live red squirrel, like frozen right in front of him with his legs out. And he looked like he was trying to escape, but the camera caught him like at the perfect moment in front of Prince Charles. So he was quoted saying, "These charming and intelligent creatures never fail to delight. I take enormous pleasure in having them around and in the house when I'm at home in Scotland."
Yeah, no. There
So
are
he's
no
got squirrels in his
squirrels
house.
in my house either, dead or alive.
He says they are such inquisitive and delightful characters. They have even been known to hunt down a few of their favorite nuts left in an unguarded jacket pocket.
Okay,
So
no.
these red squirrels in Scotland are living the life if they're at Charles' house.
Yeah, he could have them all over the house and never know it. The home is so huge. So, speaking of, I can't wait to see where we go next week on our tour of royal homes. This is going to be so much fun. Oh my gosh, the possibilities are endless. Charles is an interesting person, that's putting it mildly. And you know what? If that brings him joy in this COVID world, then I embrace it.
Yeah, I mean, I love the red squirrels. They're cute.
Sure, sure, sure. I can think of cuter animals, but you do you, Charles. You do
Right.
you.
Well, that's all I had for today. So I hope that was fun. And I will bring you another royal residence with some inspiration next week. And I'll hand it over to you.
I love that. I love the what the royal segment. I hope that the royals keep doing really weird, bizarre things so that we can have a laugh at their expense. So,
Me too.
okay, so we're going to jump right into the royal rundown. And I am starting off this week with some really good news. Speaking of animals that are cute, this is more my variety. It turns out that prior to their dog Lupo's passing, the Cambridges adopted another puppy. We have another puppy.
Yay.
I love dogs. Jessica loves dogs. I just am so happy for them. And it turns out that actually they adopted this puppy before Lupo passed away. So hopefully, I know it had to be challenging to lose Lupo, but hopefully it made the blow a little softer by having another puppy in the house. So the puppy, whose name I don't know yet, you haven't heard a name, right?
I have not.
The puppy is 8 months old and is a black English Cocker Spaniel. And this puppy, which I don't even know if it's a boy or a girl puppy, comes once again, like Lupo, from Kate's brother, James Middleton, who, as we know, is an avid dog lover. And apparently, the Cambridges are quote unquote besotted with the new puppy. There's nothing like an animal in the home to make a house a home. So, congratulations to the Cambridges. And speaking of the Cambridges, we have some highs and lows about the couple this week. So we're going to start with the low so that we can end on a high. After only 10 months working in this role, Williams' private secretary Christian Jones has quit, apparently to join private equity group Bridgepoint as a partner. Jones had actually worked for the Cambridges since 2018, starting as Deputy Communications Secretary, then moving up to Communications Secretary, and finally as Williams' private secretary before his departure. Now, he actually worked for Kensington Palace back when Kensington Palace included both the Cambridge household and the Sussex household. So he has worked for Harry and Meghan too. And as such, he could be called to testify in Meghan's lawsuit, which we will talk about in just a moment. So, Kate is debuting a new look, and I love it. Do you love it? What are your thoughts on this new straight hair, no more blowouts for the moment?
Yeah, so I do like it, but I will say I've seen a lot of people saying they don't miss her shorter style, and I actually loved her shorter hairstyle too. I thought it was so cute. So, I like both, but yeah, it's fun to see her with long hair again.
Yeah, so I don't know if this is because this is how I wear my hair. I mean, it doesn't look as polished as Kate's, let's be honest, but I wear my hair I'm a brunette and my hair is very long and straight, and I don't know if that's why I just have a kinship with this hairstyle, but anyway, I this is frivolous. But anyway, she looks beautiful as always. She's homeschooling the kids along with William. I'm loving the new look. So I read a report that this is the high coming in for the Cambridges. I read a report on Mary Claire this week that to coincide with her 10-year wedding anniversary in April, which I cannot believe that it's been a decade since they got married. Obviously, that also means 10 years of being a member of the family. The Queen is planning something special for the Duchess of Cambridge, a surprise, quote unquote. This comes after the Queen made Kate a Dame Grand Cross of the Royal Victorian Order back in 2019 to mark she and William's 8th wedding anniversary. So, Jessica, do you have any thoughts on what the Queen's surprise might be?
I really don't. I mean, I don't know of any other honor that she could receive that would be higher than what she was given in 2019. Of
Yeah.
course, the first thing that comes to my mind is like, ooh, maybe she'll give her some fancy jewelry, some royal, jewelry, but I'm sure it's not that. I'm sure it's something else. What do you think?
Yeah, I don't know. I'll be honest with you, I don't know much of the ins and outs of the titles. I should probably research that more, but I don't know a higher title that she could give her other than the Dame Grand Cross of the Royal Victorian Order. But I'm excited to see what it is because I I was happy that the Queen gave her that honor in 2019, but I thought it was a little random because 8 years of marriage is not insignificant by any means, but it's also not a kind of a milestone
Mhm.
anniversary. So I again was happy to see it happen, but I didn't really get it. And so I don't know. It could be anything from more patronages, which really translates to more work, but also those are honors too. So I don't know. I'll be very interested to see what happens, but I know that something will happen. So and this is coming apparently from insiders. So I'm excited, and we'll keep you posted if we hear more. So we're going to switch over to the Sussexes for a minute. This is just gross news, but Megan's half sister Samantha is publishing a book, and I saw it come up on the coming soon list from Barnes and Noble. And as tempted as I am to read this book, I don't think I'm going to because it just seems just icky. Also, her father, Thomas, is working on a documentary. So it's like, gosh, who needs enemies when your family treats you that way? But we also have some updates on Megan's lawsuit. So she is pushing to avoid a full trial in her case against the Mail on Sunday for invasion of privacy. As of this recording, we still don't have a word in the ruling in the summary judgment, but we will keep you posted. Obviously, I'm sure she's pushing to avoid a full trial, to avoid all the publicity that comes along with it, and putting people like Christian Jones, who I mentioned earlier, in awkward positions of having to testify. So, of course, this all stems from that letter that Megan wrote to her father Thomas that was ultimately published. So
So I have to ask you, what are your thoughts about that letter?
I think it was a private letter, and I think that the Mail on Sunday overstepped their bounds, and I I'm in total agreement with Megan on this. How about you?
So I think I'm going to differ with you a little on this one, and I'm not totally sure how I feel about it, but I mean, they raised a good point that, if it was a private letter, would you have the palace read and approve it? Would you need them to do that for a letter between a daughter and her father? I saw the excerpts from the letter and I thought the wording was just a little bit strange, and the way certain events were referenced were a little bit strange. So I don't know. I mean, I don't know if it was a personal letter that was not intended to be read, or if they anticipated it may be leaked and that's why she had it reviewed. But I do get icky feelings about this whole thing all the way around, with everything going on with her family and this whole letter. I don't really know what to believe, to be honest. So I don't know. And I don't know what will be in that book that's being published by her sister or the documentary. I feel like you just can't trust any of the information.
I just think it's just so gross. I mean, my family is so tight, and I mean, we're certainly not perfect, but we would never do this to one another, and just selling out a family member for publicity and fame and money. It's just all I honestly try to avoid a lot of the Markle stuff because it just doesn't make me feel very good. And I just hope that I can't. Samantha is a half sister, and so okay, I don't agree with it, but to have a father do that to his daughter is
Mhm.
just really disappointing.
I agree. And I honestly have had zero interest in anything to do with this story. I don't really have any desire to read any books or watch any
I
documentary. I
don't
just kind
either.
of want to step away from it all.
I don't wanna read the book, like, because I just think that it just seems so gratuitous, like, just that she's just doing it for money, and I read a lot of nonfiction, but I feel like her book would be more fiction than nonfiction, just to sell
Mhm.
copies, so, ugh,
Right.
just so salacious and just gross. So, anyway, speaking of the Sussexes, we saw a Q&A with Harry in Fast Company last week where he said that social media was to blame for the recent riots at the Capitol. So, in part, Harry said that he, quote, leans on the experts to help give guidance on how to reform the state of our digital world, how we make it better for our kids, of course, but also for ourselves now. The avalanche of misinformation we are all inundated with is bending reality and has created this distorted filter that affects our ability to think clearly or even understand the world around us. What happens online does not stay online. It spreads everywhere like wildfire into our homes and workplaces, into the streets, into our minds. The question really becomes about what to do when news and information sharing is no longer a decent, truthful exchange, but rather an exchange of weaponry. So, some pretty strong words from Harry, who also denied that he and Meghan had quit social media, saying, quote, we will revisit social media when it feels right for us, perhaps when we see more meaningful commitments to change or reform. But right now, we've thrown much of our energy into learning about this space and how we can help. So, strong words from Harry about obviously a passion project of his and Meghan's. So,
Well, I was going to say, I think people are so deeply tied to social media at this time. Unfortunately, I don't know if we'll see people pull away from it, but I do applaud him for coming out and saying that and standing his ground when it could be so beneficial for he and Megan to grow their brand through social media. I would love to see a following, with their lead on this and see people pull back from social media, because I definitely agree. It should be a fun place, but it's gotten very distorted and dark in a lot of different places. And I would totally support it.
I'm just glad to hear that they're not gone forever. There's still a crack in that door. So
I
I
mean,
think,
yeah, we love seeing glimpses of them, but if we could find a better way
yeah,
to do that, I would definitely support it.
absolutely. I hope that the culture is such that they come back soon and it gets healthier. So our last item on the royal rundown is we are officially on baby watch for
Yay.
Eugenie, who is due in mid-February. So I wanted to update our listeners and you, Jessica, on the leading names right now in the odds makers polls for baby names. The leading names right now are Grace and Arthur, which are followed by Victoria, Arabella, and Alice for a little girl. I don't know where Arabella came from, but okay. And Frederick, Edward, Florence, which I, to be honest with you, wasn't aware was a boy's name, and Albert for a little boy. So, what are your predictions, Jessica? And what name would you like to see them choose?
So I think we touched on this a few weeks ago, and I feel like Arthur has popped up before in other conversations when we've had royal babies. I don't remember who we were suspicious might name their kid that in the past. Didn't.
Pippa's son is named Arthur.
Okay, maybe that's what I'm thinking of. But I honestly love Alice for a girl and Albert for a boy. I think those would be my top picks. What about you?
So, interestingly, this is not my top pick, but Arabella, where that might be coming from is I don't know if you knew this, but I love the Kennedys as well. And Jack and Jackie Kennedy, their firstborn child, she was not alive at birth. They named her Arabella, so that might be where that came from. So Arabella was born in, I believe, 1956, and then followed by Caroline, and then followed by JFK Jr., and then followed by Patrick, who died at 2 days old. So maybe that's where Arabella's coming from. Not
So
sure.
that's interesting. Arabella must have, it must be a theme with White House families because I don't know if you knew this, but I think Ivanka Trump's daughter's name is Arabella.
Really? I mean, it's a
Yeah.
beautiful name, but it doesn't really fit in with Alice and Grace. And
No, it doesn't sound like a British royal family name at all.
no, it doesn't. And so I'm thinking also Grace might come from Grace, of course, Grace Kelly from the Royal House of Monaco, which we are due for a chat about that family because I think you and I both love that family very much. So my picks at the moment are probably Victoria and Albert. I don't personally like the name Albert for a little boy. It sounds very grown up for a little boy, but also that's how the British royal family does. They pick very mature names and the kids grow into them. But I don't know. Edward is kind of already being used by Eugenie's uncle. Um, I love Victoria. Of course, that's a classic royal family name. We'll see what happens. So and we'll continue to update on what the odds makers are saying, but the front runners at the moment are Grace and Arthur. So for our final segment, I want to ask a question that's been burning on my mind, and that is, do we think that Eugenie is going to deliver at the Lindo wing? And so for those that don't know what the Lindo wing is, it's a tradition, and we're going to talk here for a moment about how it started. So there is a tradition of royal moms giving birth in what's called the Lindo wing of St. Mary's Hospital in London, and then introducing the baby to the public on those iconic Lindo wing steps. I'm sure that Jessica, you and our listeners can see this in your mind right now. The press and the public line up to catch the first glimpse of the newborn. So I don't know if you all knew this, listeners, but the tradition started actually with Princess Anne, who introduced her firstborn, Peter, there in 1977. Before that, interestingly enough, all royal babies were born in palaces. So all four of the Queen's children were not born at a hospital. William and Harry were both introduced there in 1982 and 1984, respectively. And of course, in recent years, we've seen Kate introduce all three of her babies there. Meghan did not do that. She said no to the tradition when Archie was born. And to be honest with you, I have very strong opinions about the Lindo wing tradition, especially with Kate. I think it is a little bit insane to expect a mom who just gave birth hours ago to have full makeup, a full blowout if you're Kate, and be ready in heels, mind you, like a couple hours postpartum to introduce their new baby, usually no more than 6 or 7 hours postpartum. Meghan opted to introduce Archie to the press about 48 hours after his birth in a photo call at Windsor Castle. So, Jessica, my question for you, do you think Eugenie and Jack will take part in the Lindo wing tradition upon the birth of their first child, presumably next month? We are recording this on January 26th, so pretty sure it's going to be a February baby. I think it is important to note here that Eugenie herself was born at the Portland hospital, as was Sister Beatrice, so I don't know if that weighs into your decision.
Yeah, so I do not think that she will go with the Lindo wing tradition. I mean, I won't be surprised if she does, but I get the feeling that that won't be something that they'll choose. Given one, that was not what her parents did with her. And I sort of feel like she's going to reserve that for Kate and William to do with their kids. And I think she'll choose something a little more private. I mean, the UK has been in lockdown with COVID, and there's just a lot of stuff going on right now. I kind of don't expect to see that.
So I think I said on an earlier episode of the podcast that I thought they would, kind of for a morale boost, but because COVID is so rampant and strong right now in the UK, and I doubt that that will resolve itself in the next couple of weeks, the whole Lindo wing photo call, that's a super spreader event right there, right? I mean, you like all these photographers clamoring for the best shot. There's no social distancing. So I think for that alone, you're right. I don't think it's going to happen. I think maybe if COVID wasn't the case, it would be because I don't know. I mean, I hope Kate and William have one more child in them, but they might be finished. And so, they might, and obviously Harry and Meghan, if they have more children, are not going to be doing that tradition. They live a continent away. So I think for morale purposes, maybe if COVID wasn't happening, that might be on the table. But because of COVID and because of the family decision at Christmas to avoid Sandringham because they didn't want the crowds, I think that it's going to be a no go.
Yeah, we'll see, but I think you're right.
I think it's going to be a no go, but I can't wait to see how they debut the baby. Um, I hope it's more than just Instagram, but that's what we might have to do because of COVID. Because obviously that it would be dangerous to have a photo call with lots of photographers, like even Harry and Meghan did, because everybody's trying to avoid crowds right now. So we're on baby watch. I know that you are all on baby watch, and that wraps up episode 9, my friends. Thank you so much for tuning in. Follow us on Instagram at Podcast Royal. Email us at hellopodcastroyal@gmail.com. And don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review our podcast. Finally, we are on Apple, so please continue to follow us on Spotify. Thank you for all of those that have been loyal on Spotify, but we are on Apple now as well. So feel free to get on Apple and subscribe, rate, and review our podcast. And we will see you, lovely people, next week for episode 10. Double digits, baby. Have a wonderful week, and we will see you in a week. Bye.
Bye.